now Mark Esper, former Secretary of Defense and author of A Sacred Oath, Memoirs of a Secretary of Defense During Extraordinary Time. You know, Mark Esper, I thought you were better technologically than this. I mean, I really figured you'd just snap right into it. That was a joke.
Well, I don't have that large staff that I used to have at the Pentagon, Larry. You know how that works.
All right. Okay, so we'll excuse you on that point. But I don't know if you heard my opening riff, but what concerns me here is Reagan's peace through strength. We do not have peace. We do not have strength. We are weak at home. We are weak abroad. The Russians are taking advantage of us. The Chinese are taking advantage of it. And, Mark, I quoted from your op-ed piece, if I can find it, but the basic idea was, here it is, the basic idea was what's lacking is a clear sense of how Washington wants this conflict to end and then resourcing that outcome. That's the part I don't get. And what do you think? I mean, this can't go on endlessly. We can't spend $100 billion a year.
Well, as I've said on many occasions, I consider myself a Reagan Republican who believes in peace through strength. I think it's critical when you're trying to face off against dictators like Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. And frankly, as I write in the rest of that commentary, my biggest concern has been the administration has trickled out arms and ammunition to the Ukrainians. And I say in there, it's been enough to keep them alive and not lose, but not enough to win. And to me, that's the biggest shortcoming. We just keep trickling these things out. If we could give them what they need to win the fight, they can beat the Russians and push them out of Ukraine. And that would show a lot of resolve from the United States and our allies around the world.
So they're still listening to you, and other experts have said this. You know, it still looks like the Bidens are a day late and a dollar short on many of these things.
Yeah, look, we've been self-deterred. It's they asked for a weapon system, whether it's HIMARS or Patriots or tanks, and now it's fighter jets, and we say no, and then it's maybe, and then by the time they get pummeled on the battlefield or civilian infrastructure is struck at home, we finally get around to yes. If we would just give them what they need when they need it, they can win. I really believe that. It would be far cheaper from an accounting perspective in the long run, but of course far less costly in death and destruction for the Ukrainian people as well. And that's more important, frankly.
Secretary Esper, a serious question. Shouldn't there be some kind, whether it's quiet diplomacy or what, to look for a peaceful settlement here? Something, you know, Trump is talking about this privately to friends. I heard it from him over the weekend. I mean, what do you think about that? Some kind of peace diplomacy.
I think you should always keep the lines of communication open, particularly during war. But that said, I think the outcome inevitably has to be negotiated between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, and the Ukrainian people have to determine what they're willing to live with. And frankly, Putin is the one driving his country into the ditch here. It's been a strategic failure, an operational failure, and a tactical failure all the way around. And the question is, at what point will he hit bottom? And we don't know what that is. He's waiting for the West to buckle. And that is a concern of ours as well.
Mark, a couple other points while we have you, and we appreciate your time very much. We, the United States government, not we, but the Biden administration still has not had a tough response for this Chinese balloon fiasco. They entered into our sovereign space. They still haven't done anything about this.
Yeah, I've said from the beginning, from just the first day or so after the balloon was discovered, that we should have shot it down on the front end, and that would have sent a very strong message. There needs to be greater public condemnation of Beijing and what they did. And then, look, I'd stop asking them for meetings. I think they need to apologize and come to us. We can't look like we're going to Beijing kowtowing. I think we need to show strength, and that means resetting the terms with them, because, look, it's the greatest threat we face this century. That's the Chinese Communist Party, and they have clear ambitions to dominate the Indo-Pacific, if not the world, by 2049, the anniversary of China.
And, Secretary, look, on the same lines, the talk now, and there's talk coming out of this Munich Security Conference, and there's been talk about the threat that China will send military weapons, lethal weapons, presumably, to Vladimir Putin. Now, I don't know. I mean, that would be an unacceptable development. There should be clear penalties if that ever happens. What do you make of that? The Bidens, I mean, it's interesting. Secretary Blinken echoed that talk, but he didn't say what we might do about it.
Yeah, look, that would be very problematic. Right now, Russia, due to economic and other sanctions, is relying on the countries such as North Korea and Iran to supply them. If China were to get in that game as well, it could change the playing field for sure. But I think part of this too is Xi Jinping recognizes they cannot afford his strategic partner Russia to lose this fight, and my sense is he thinks that they are indeed losing. The other part of this too is he's supposed to propose some type of peace plan on Friday, so we'll see what Xi Jinping says there. But look, if this happens, that they start providing lethal aid to Russia, not only will it have strategic consequences, but for many of your listeners out there, I think that we will be bound to impose heavy sanctions on China, and that's only going to further the strategic decoupling between our two nations economically, and Europe as well, by the way, and accelerate that effect, if you will.
I mean, last thought, Secretary, I think we should impose billions and billions more in tariffs, and we should put even tighter export controls, and we should move towards additional decoupling from China. I think those are the economic weapons, the only thing they ever understood. I give you the last word, sir.
Yeah, look, I think one of the major accomplishments of the Trump administration was to forge a consensus within the government, within the country, that China was our strategic threat for the 21st century. And as you recall, we went a long way in terms of imposing export controls and doing a number of other things to put the pressure on China. The Biden administration really needs to pick up that ball. They've done some good in some areas when it comes to export controls, but really tighten things up further, because this game isn't getting any easier, and Xi Jinping's not backing down.
All right. Former Defense Secretary Mark Esper, thank you very much.